Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and surprise, surprise, we woke up this morning to a brand new trailer for Marvel Studios' Black Widow film. Nobody knew this was coming, and once it dropped, we realized we had 1,000 questions that we wanted answered. Okay, we really have 4 questions that we want answered, and we're going to get to them in the video right now. But before we do that, do me a favor, go down and hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. You guys know that we're huge Marvel fans here on CinemaBlend's YouTube page. We're always talking about the upcoming movies. We want to make sure that you guys watch every single video that we post. The first thing that I want to discuss is, when does this movie take place? We know that it's a prequel, and spoiler alert upon all spoiler alerts, Black Widow died in Avengers Endgame. So this has to take place before all of those activities happen, and MCU fans kind of know this. We sort of assumed, based on information that we had been gleaning from presentations at D23 and San Diego Comic-Con, that the action in this movie was going to take place right after the moment in Civil War when Natasha, played by Scarlett Johansson, let Captain America and Bucky escape. She actually stands in the way of Black Panther, lets Cap go, and then sort of disappears off the grid. We don't really know what happens to her after that point. The next time that we see Natasha after the events of Civil War is in Avengers Infinity War, and she's on Cap's rogue group of superheroes that are fighting crime from the shadows. So what happened to her in that interim when she was kind of being chased by the government and frowned upon by the powers that be for letting Captain America go? Well, I would say that this footage clarifies the fact that that's when this movie is going to take place. However, there's a shot in the trailer of a familiar face that we know from the MCU of Thunderbolt Ross, who's played by William Hurt. And he looks far younger than he did at the time of Civil War. It's a very deliberate bit of de-aging that makes me think that this story could potentially take place much earlier in the MCU, or there might just be a scene that has Thunderbolt Ross doing something pretty important with the Black Widow program, potentially with the Red Room, and maybe that will then catch up to where Natasha is at the events of Civil War. But they included that shot of Thunderbolt Ross in the trailer for a reason, to make us think that the movie is going to take place much earlier on the MCU timeline, and I find that to be pretty intriguing. The new Black Widow movie introduces several new characters, and the word that they use for them in the trailer is misleading. They call it a family, and I don't think that it's a family in the way that you and I assume. For instance, she runs into one of the first new characters, Yelena, played by Florence Pugh, and after they battle, Natasha calls her sister. Well, I don't actually think that she's a blood relative sibling. I believe that they both just came up through the Black Widow program together, and that Yelena is also a trained super spy, much like Natasha. So when she calls her sister, I think it's more like a sister figure. This bleeds over into 2 other major characters that we meet in the trailer. Melina, who is played by Rachel Weisz, and then later we see David Harbour's character, the Red Guardian.
Family. Back together again.
You got fat.
And he mentions something about them all being a family once again, but again, I'm using that term not in a blood relative type way. I have to believe that it's just that they're part of the same sort of spy program. Red Guardian is the most interesting character in this instance. He's been used in different ways in the Marvel Comics over the years. He's Russia's answer to Captain America. He's a Soviet super soldier, and he has had some ties to Black Widow in the comics before. In one version of them, they were married, and I don't think the movie is going down that route. David Harbour and Scarlett Johansson probably will not be playing husband and wife, but it seems like they're going to have to play some type of a family unit, so just don't get deceived by the use of terms like sister and family when they pop up in this trailer. It would be very difficult to do a Black Widow prequel film without mentioning the Red Room, and I want to find out how that is going to factor into the larger story that's being told by director Kate Shortland in the Black Widow film. We have seen flashbacks to the Red Room in several other Marvel films, primarily Age of Ultron, when the Scarlet Witch is able to infiltrate Black Widow's mind and take her back through the Russian training that we see that turned her into a super spy. We do get a very quick shot of more agents being trained in the Red Room, which seems to suggest that even after Natasha left it early on, that the program continued. And when she says to Yelena, we have to go back to where this all began, and Yelena looks less than thrilled about that being part of the mission, it makes me think that they're going to go back to the Red Room and sort of stop it from happening because of all of the emotional damage, psychological damage, physical damage that is being done to the people who get through that training program. But the fact that they include shots of agents being trained, there's choreographed shots of them working with guns, and I think that the Red Room is going to factor into a larger part of why Black Widow is retracing her roots through her past, but I'm very curious about how the screenwriters are going to make it a bigger element in this prequel movie. Several Marvel superheroes have recognizable villains, but Black Widow doesn't have as many that you can point to, so the movie is going to use Taskmaster, a villain who has shown up in multiple different comics, including some Black Widow stories, to be the main villain in this movie, or at least one of the significant villains, and I'm kind of curious to see how they're going to make Taskmaster factor in. A lot of times in these Marvel movies, the hero and the villain have similarities that draw them to each other. They have, one has been sort of born from the result of the other, or there's a reason why they fight each other. If you go back to Thor and Loki being stepbrothers, or you go to the creation of Captain America and his rival in the Red Skull, the best sort of hero-villain interactions in the MCU have some sort of a link, which makes me think that Taskmaster might end up having some tie to Black Widow, potentially through the Red Room, maybe through this makeshift Soviet family that we're going to meet on screen. The power of Taskmaster is truly incredible, and I can't wait for everybody to see it on screen. There was a scene that we saw at San Diego Comic-Con that mirrors the type of power that Taskmaster has, and I use the word mirror because that's exactly what he's able to do. He studies somebody's fighting style and then is able to duplicate it so perfectly that you end up fighting a version of yourself, but someone who's a little bit quicker and a little bit stronger, so there's no way to sort of defend or to get the upper hand on Taskmaster. And it's not included in the new trailer, but the scene that we were able to see from Black Widow when they showed it at San Diego Comic-Con was her facing off against Taskmaster, and it really was Natasha fighting a mirror image of herself. Now, some people on Twitter already are complaining, I know, surprise, surprise, people on Twitter are complaining that the costume for Taskmaster is a little bit generic, and he does have this amazing suit in the comics that's white hood and blue armor and a lot more color that pops. Yes, he does have the bow and arrow that he uses in the new trailer, but the Taskmaster suit, aside from the skull sort of face, is a generic kind of black, almost what they did to the X-Men in the first Bryan Singer film, how they stripped away all the color and just gave them those black leather suits. That's slightly disappointing, but I'm also going to choose to believe that that's just one version of Taskmaster's suit that we see in the movie, and that hopefully by the end, Marvel's costume designers, who always do a really great job of translating these characters, the heroes and villains, from the comic book page to the screen, will put Taskmaster in his original suit. But also, I just want to know his motivations. I want to know why he's factoring into this, why they chose him for the Black Widow villain, and how important he will be for the MCU going forward. Needless to say, Marvel fans, this is just a tease. We have several more months before Black Widow reaches theaters on May 1st, 2020, but these are the questions that came to mind when we saw the first full-length trailer for Black Widow. What questions did you guys have as you watched the new footage? Did you think about some of the things that I brought up, or did I miss a few things that you guys want to discuss? Head down to the comment section, tell me what you think about the new footage, tell me what questions you have about people like Taskmaster or Yelena, or especially Red Guardian, who's having a hard time fitting into that suit. And while you are down there, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. Again, like I mentioned, we're posting Marvel videos like this all the time. You guys will be kicking yourself if you miss a single one of them.